Hello, and we've been brought together today as part of the Digital Craft Festival. It's an absolute pleasure to meet everybody online, and as somebody just mentioned, it's a pleasure to see people without masks. So yeah, we're here as a group to do a sort of show and tell conversation, if you like, as part of the Digital Craft Festival running 27th to the 29th of November. I'm Ceri Jones, and I'm the Creative Director of Mission Gallery in Swansea in South Wales. And I have the pleasure of chatting to 8 wonderful makers. And not only do we have a very rich range of work represented today, so ceramics, jewellery, textiles, paper and print, but we're also a group of makers from some lovely, very different, quite far apart, distant locations. So it's super to all be in one place and have this chance to talk, really. So I will let the makers introduce themselves, because that's far better. So with Elmina.
Yes. Yes, my name is Elmina Fitch and I do knitwear. So since 2014, I've run my business first in England. I lived in Brighton, where I studied as well. So I run my business now from an island. So I've got a studio and a shop on an island, Fjäderholmarna, here in Stockholm, because I live in Stockholm. Where I design and make all the patterns and all the jumpers and scarves and hats and mittens and throws and cushion covers. So yeah, that's pretty much me. I only use natural materials and take my inspiration from traditional folk imagery and patterns and kind of, and not antique, but vintage textiles that I get my hands on. It's just that inspires me, finding traditional patterns and trying to translate them into something modern and interesting. Yeah.
And are you, I have to ask, are you wearing?
Yes.
Yours? Yes.
Yeah, this is a school jumper. It's a new one for the season. I think this summer in the shop has been quite quiet because there hasn't been many tourists coming to Stockholm. So yeah, it's been strange, but it's been really fun to just knit and make things. I had so much more time this year, so it's been really creative.
Thanks. And Gail?
Hi, I'm Gail Kelly and I live in County Down in Northern Ireland in the countryside, and which is just gorgeous. But I've got, so it's an old farm, there's loads of outbuildings, so I'm really lucky. I've got my own workshop here at the house and my own press, which unfortunately I'm not filming from today because there's absolutely no signal and nothing happens out there, just work, you know. So I'm a printmaker and I've been self-employed since '95, and I mostly print on linen, you know, locally sourced linen, and some very old, sort of vintage, I suppose you would call it now, linen that's come down through the family. So I do you want me to hold things up? I do, I print sort of black on natural linen like this, and to be quite well known for those. And then I have cards that go with those. And then in recent years, I've been making these hand-stitched linen collages, which start as small little lino cuts printed on various sorts of linen, which I then hand-stitch together to make these collages. So at the minute I'm on, I don't know if you can see that against the sunlight, Victorian glass houses, which I love visiting gardens, you know, both at home and when I'm away on my travels. So plenty of inspiration, and my own garden as well here, which doesn't have a glass house obviously, but it's nice. It's half wild. It's full of creepy crawlies and birds and all sorts of things. So that's what I do.
Fabulous. Thank you. Heather.
Hi, yes, so I'm Heather McDermott. I'm a contemporary jeweller based in Glasgow. I am originally from the Isle of Skye, so that's very much where I sort of draw kind of all of my inspiration from. I studied in Edinburgh and then moved home, set up my business there in 2012, and then moved to Glasgow 4 years ago now. So I've actually this year taken on my first workshop. So I've always worked from home. Some would say that was bad timing, but maybe it's been really nice to have something out with the house. So I'm based in this quirky little lane in Glasgow in the West End called the Hidden Lane. So yeah, and this is where I make everything, and I've just started to kind of tentatively open during the week. Everything's made from stainless steel and precious metals, so silver and gold. So yeah, I use a real variety, sort of inspired by my coastal home. Yeah, that's me.
Great. Including what you're wearing? Or no?
Including what I'm wearing. I know you thought I'd got to wear something. So yeah, this is one of my new colours. I use a lot of really bright colours on stainless steel. So yes, brighten up a grey day in Glasgow.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hannah and Doug, how about you?
We are in Galloway in southwest Scotland, and we're both footwear potters, and we've both been making pots for years and years and years before we got together as a couple, and now we make pots from the garden at home. So very much looking at traditional footwear pots of the British Isles, really, this kind of country. Yeah.
Have some.
Hey, fabulous.
I was in Devon till about 7 years ago, I suppose, on and off, and got lured up here to Dumfries and Galloway by Hannah, and we've since built the workshop in the garden here, and we've got a builder here at the moment putting new windows in, so it might be a bit noisy. Sorry about that. But this is
Wow. That's beautiful. Huge scale, Hannah.
A bit like Elmina was saying, looking a lot at older patterns and trying to make them appropriate for now, and trying to make them my own. So
use a very basic traditional palette of materials, which a lot of other potters use, and kind of our challenge is finding our own voice within that. So we kind of work in a traditional way, don't we? But I wouldn't say we're not within a tradition, as it were. We try to be contemporary, but taking influence from the tradition of British slipwear, really, and continental slipwear. In fact, we're looking more and more at French pots at the moment, aren't we?
yeah.
So.
And you both, I'm right in saying you both throw and you both decorate, don't you?
Yeah, occasionally I'll decorate something that Doug's made, or vice versa, but very rarely. Mainly we make our own things.
It's quite interesting working together, using the same materials, firing in the same kilns, studying the same influences, but finding each of us has a completely different outcome, which is good. Really, isn't it? I can't do what Hannah does, and she can't do what I do, so it kind of works. You know, it doesn't. We don't tread on each other's toes doing it. In fact, I just want to take it easy, really, and let Hannah do the work. You know? I'm getting old.
Very honest. Well, thank you. Okay,
I
and
didn't mean that.
to London now.
Me, Aisha.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Aisha Brandt. I'm a jewellery designer and go by the business name of Brandts Jewellery. I used to be a landscape architect before, and when I first started making jewellery, I went through different techniques, but what kind of the line that goes through everything is that I love plants, and I'm kind of fascinated by their growth patterns and their changes through the seasons. So I'm the weirdo who's staring at trees and picking bits off while walking the dog. I'm pretty sure they think I'm crazy in my local park. But then I catalogue things. So I have far behind me, there's a board of a bit like taxidermy, but with plants. So I've got lots of twigs and things, and I keep notes on what they are and where the tree was and things like that. And so I cast from these twigs and buds. But what I do like to do is also edit nature. So quite often I will get a mold made, and then using waxes of these things kind of fit buds onto twigs if I want them to look a certain way. So mess around with it a bit as well. I started out just beading, completely self-taught, and I just went to the library in the days when people went to libraries and got out 15 books and just sat down with basic tools and a bit of silver and some beads and made my first piece. And I've been doing it for 10 years now. At some point in the past, I did an evening course at Central St. Martin's, so I learned more of the essential techniques such as soldering, polishing, etc. And it's my third career, and I absolutely love it. And I'm going to be celebrating in December my 10-year anniversary. I don't know what else to say really. It's my first time with a Bovie Tracy in the digital craft fair. So quite excited to be part of it.
Oh, brilliant. So third and lasting career is your intent?
Yes, definitely, because I find I can do it from anywhere. And I love having a connection with my customers, even though we're mostly messaging, not even doing Zoom calls quite often. But I've got customers from around the world commissioning unique wedding and engagement rings. And I'm always fascinated that they trust me with that really important project, and without ever seeing me or, you know, being present with me. So, but I'm always so honored to make such special things for people. And I think the change in technology is amazing for opening up our world to be able to get customers from anywhere, really. I think that's really amazing.
And I have to ask, so is your piece, have you got work that you're wearing?
Yes, this is from a conifer leaf, cast from a conifer leaf. And actually I saw these just outside my door after a really, really big storm. And then I had to walk around the neighborhood in the park looking for the tree that it came from. So I don't know many people who do that.
Oh, great. Thank you. Kathy, sitting by a beautiful leaf.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm Kathy Hutton. I'm a printmaker, and this is my studio that I'm in. I live in Wiltshire in southwest England, and I'm really lucky. I've got a studio at home. We bought this house, and it had a room that's it is attached to the house, but it's not in the main body of the house, and it's got three walls of windows, so it's like really light and airy. And I'm sat now at the one wall that hasn't got a window, so you can actually see me. Yeah, I'm really lucky that I can work from home here. And actually, I think I'm very similar to Aisha. I am also that nutter going around the park and the lanes, and my children get really annoyed with me when we go on walks because I'm always lagging behind, and they're like, "Stop staring at nature, stop like staring at leaves and things." And I've also got really big pockets on my coats and everything, and actually they're normally just full of cruds of broken up leaves in the corners, because I pick up everything. Everything when I'm on my travels and bring them home. So I'm a printmaker. I studied printed textiles at Dundee University, which was mainly screen printing, but my support subject was printmaking, and that's really what I fell in love with. And so I use kind of lots of different techniques in my work. So the big leaf you can see behind me is screen printed, but normally my work involves kind of screen printing, lino printing, mono printing, quite often all three together. So I've got kind of two different styles. So the silhouettes I've kind of developed kind of in the last 2 years, but I think probably what I'm maybe more recognized for is kind of my little kind of slightly more quirky drawings like this, where I'm mixing in kind of ceramics with then kind of berries and leaves with kind of a hand-drawn mono printed line work. So yeah, I suppose where I live and the things around me are very much influencing my work. That's me.
Thank you. And Sunny, Justine, over to you.
I'm Justine Allison. I'm a potter. I live in West Wales on a farm. I've been, I don't know how long I've been here, 14, 15 years, been in Wales, oh God, 18 years, I think. So I grew up in London, so a lot of my influences have come with me from London. And there's some very loud things going over, you might hear, sorry, aeroplanes. So I slab build predominantly with porcelain, making sort of very, very thin pieces that are, it's kind of influenced from things that people keep in their cupboards. They're sort of, you know, you go around to houses, things behind glass doors, and my love of ceramics started working at a shop where I sold dinner services, and I just loved it. I used to spend hours sort of like, I'll happily dust them and rearrange them, and so I had quite an interest in industrial pottery, but it's not, when I did my degree, we had a go at slip casting things. It did nothing for me, and I sort of enjoyed throwing, and then sort of discovered that I loved hand building. So it's almost a bit like I roll out a piece of clay that's almost like my bit of paper that I then cut the shapes and construct the pieces that, and like paper, you get movement and there's wobbles and think the asymmetry in the piece, and that's what I want within the work as well. I think there's just, I mean, I haven't got very much at the moment, but it's just a tiny little piece that I've done. And it's about, that one's quite thick, it's about 1 millimetre thick, go thinner. So it started off with, there's current pieces, it started off more cylindrical pieces. So again, it was making pieces of work that essentially could be used, but it was a bit of a play whether you would use it or not. So it's like some of the pieces that I've made are so thin that you do feel that you could sort of break it in your hand. You probably could actually, it's that thin, but they can be used. So I wanted everything to have a function, but it was a very on the edge of function. And the pieces of sort of, you know, that they're very linear, but with movement within them, and they're not perfect. Like there's lines everywhere. So my urban upbringing to now this, like even where I live, locals think we're in the middle of nowhere. It's there's lines everywhere. I mean, I walk a lot. There's a lot of trees. There's woods. There's rivers, hedgerows, everything where I am, which all influence sort of directly and indirectly. They're just things that I see. And I think using the porcelain started off to do with the light because of, I think, sort of windows. And again, there's all the things, the influences around have all sort of moulded together a bit. I suppose I've been working in this way for quite a long time. I realised sort of doing something last week, how much it went back to my degree work, where I started working with bone china and hand building with bone, throwing with bone china as well. Don't recommend that, but it's
Wow.
So yeah, that's me on my farm in West Wales in my dump studio.
And the lovely piece that you held up, I know is really quite tiny, not the tiniest you made, but yeah. But we can see behind you larger scale. So just thinking that sort of in terms of the range of scale that you
I think there's some pieces have gone up. I think the biggest I can make up to, and I have made up to, is about 38 centimetres, which working in this way, is massive, because the clay, I had to sort of really adapt to one of the biggest pieces I first made. Warping, I'm very happy with warping and movement, but it moved so much. But I realised when I was doing it that it was 1 millimetre thick all the way down. It was going to move. So the bigger something is, the more I'm going to have to adjust. And you get, I mean, this is quite, I don't know if you can see a recent piece as well. So there's just, it's got funny little suns, but yeah. So the movement's very important within them. I know how to make, if I wanted them perfect, I could make it perfect, but their imperfection is what makes them perfect for me, actually.
Absolutely. All for imperfection.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Well, I had just thought that as autumn swirls around us, in the UK anyway, and there's certainly days where more than ever I feel like I could hibernate, I don't know. I just wondered whether we were sort of going to loosely talk around some notions around the sort of season and seasonal practice, but that's more about whether practices have rhythms to them, and explore a little bit maybe what these are. So I will just throw a question sort of out there. Do you find that the rhythm of your practice or practices sort of shifts, changes as the seasons come and go, the natural seasons come and go?
Yeah, I do. For me, I've got young children, 3 young children who are still at school. So naturally, some holidays, summer is a bit of a no-go for work for me. But also, oh, this is really bad timing. There's a delivery just come to the door, so maybe someone else might have to answer. I'm so sorry.
There we go. That interrupted her flow, didn't it? Oh, go Gail, thanks.
Yeah, but usually before all this lockdown, I'd be out like 3 or 4 nights a week between traditional Irish music and evening classes and one thing and another, going out in Belfast. And so normally I would be sort of admin and you know, faffing around in the morning, and then after a suitable number of cups of tea, work up a head of steam and actually do some proper work, as in making or printing, in the afternoon. And then if I'm not out somewhere, that goes on into the evening. So in the winter, my workshop is absolutely Baltic. I don't know if it's all kind of workshops, everyone I've ever been in is always sub-zero. So you've got so many clothes on, you can hardly move your arms, you're peering out under your hat and everything. And it gets so cold the ink won't roll out properly. So I've got a little heater and everything. And on the rare occasion in Ireland where we get a heat wave in the summer, the ink gets so squishy. It's just everywhere, and you get the big sort of sloop sloop noise, and the ink's it's just not right. You have to wait till the evening till it's cooler to print. And people look, I think, what are you talking about? But it really is a thing with the ink, because I use oil-based ink. And so, yes, it's definitely seasonal. And these evenings, I would be indoors at night by the fire, the line cutting at the kitchen table, and sort of sewing indoors, definitely. And out for walks when the weather's good, and you know, this whole, the others are saying about leaves and nature and walks and gardens. Yeah, that's it. So definitely seasonal.
Did you delivery? Have you taken receipt of that?
Yes, although it wasn't actually the delivery I was waiting for, so I might have to. But no, I was saying obviously summer isn't great for me doing any work really, because of the children. But also the type of I'm mainly my topic that I kind of influenced by leaves and berries and twigs. And in the summer you really can't see kind of the twigs and stuff. It's like saying, you know, you can't see the wood for the trees. So in the summer, I'm not actually that influenced and inspired anyway. So that's quite good that that's a bit of a downtime in kind of my work time. But definitely this time of year, Obviously, it's a run up to kind of Christmas, and I probably work a bit better under pressure, like a lot of people, even though I don't like it. But also, it's when I get my inspiration at this time of year. I think I like the leaves and the things that the plants that I'm inspired by. I probably like them when they're past their best, if that makes sense. So if it's a leaf and it's curling, or literally when you're looking at the trees and the branches and there's one leaf kind of left on it, or I don't know, there's I don't normally do flowers, I normally kind of leaves them all, but these are kind of some tulips that I kind of sketched and did a liner of kind of this year. And it's, you know, when you've left tulips in a vase and then they're kind of definitely past their best, but they start to do their own thing, and you know, the petals all move apart from each other, and kind of it gets some movement. So that's the kind of the thing that inspires me more. So for me, the actual seasonality of the year really actually affects kind of my creativity and how I kind of use that kind of within my business, I suppose, as well.
Vases full of dried flowers and seeds.
I'm with you, Gail.
And it annoys me because they drop wee bits everywhere, and I'm just going, what's wrong with you? It's fruit as this, you know.
I've got lots of those jugs and vases of dried things dropping bits everywhere.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So very direct influences in terms of natural sort of environment. How about you, Elmina?
And I was just thinking, because I usually look in books and on textiles for inspiration. So the seasonal way of finding inspiration is not it's not usually what I do. Maybe with the colors of the yarns, but it's hard to plan ahead. I find I just want to like get the colors I want and then make it, kind of thing. So that's something to work on. But for me, like the natural seasons, this is my second year having the shop and the workshop on an island, and it's so close to Stockholm. It's like 20 minutes by boat, but there are no boats going there in January, February, because the ice is all around the island. So you could ice skate, but I don't want to do that with all my yarns. So yeah, for me, seasons are kind of like planning out when I do things, when I work from home and embroider things and finish things off, or when I'm on the island, and then it's like being in the countryside where you can see the city. So I love that, the summers on the island, and then kind of being at home, having my home studio.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Can you still get to the island at the moment, did you say?
Yeah, I can, but there's only one boat there and one boat back a day now. So if you want to do something different, there is no shop on the island. There is no one else on the island. So it's just me, which is a great feeling. It can be a bit scary if it's dark like now. But yeah, it's great to get out there because you get so much space around you, because I live in just outside of Stockholm otherwise, and there's people everywhere. So it's good to have both worlds, kind of thing.
And the light, I imagine, must be quite affected. Well, maybe it's not affecting, but the light must change enormously across those few months.
Yeah, yeah. Like in the summer, yeah, I was disappointed about that actually. When we were gonna have our opening for the shop this May, no, the first year, that was 2 years ago. Yeah, we're gonna have a grand opening. It was the first year, and we're gonna do like fires outside and like really cozy and lots of small lights and things. But it's sunny. It's sunny till 11, 12 at night, and then everyone has to go with the last boat. So we had all this set up, and I was just like, oh, I didn't think about that. It's actually, yeah, like sunlight. Yeah, but it can be nice as well. Yeah.
And that sort of light, and I know we touched on the sort of atmospheric, so different atmosphere that seasons bring, different light levels, low level hitting you in the studio there, Justine. I know that affects certainly the potters that are
this, I mean, I find sort of it's weird at the moment is when I feel really sort of quite creative at the time when I know I'm sort of heading towards absolutely freezing studio and damp and cold, but it's actually the time that I really like being in there. Weirdly, I think it beat me, was it year before last, it got to -7, and that did actually beat me. It was like, right, I have to go in, and my clay actually froze for the first time inside. But I don't know if it's something, I don't know what it is about the light changing in here. I mean, I work in front of a window and I'm constantly looking out. And it's almost that thing I think that Kathy said about your busiest time is when I'm most creative. You know, I've got a family as well, so the summer, that routine of not working so much in the summer because I can't, and so it's almost like I could switch. Maybe it's just those years of doing it and sort of alter how sort of my creative moments. That is changing now because my daughter's older, but I love the dark. I love which is probably why I've made things that are light and let light in. I've always loved the dark. I've loved the winter and the autumn. I love all the seasons, but there's something about that period to me. And maybe that sort of, that's where, you know, when I first started working in this way, I made lanterns that you put a candle in. So, and I needed this dark space. So, and I don't know if that's a city thing. Again, for me, that's quite a city thing. It's finding lights around you that within the dark. Although the city's obviously not that dark, but I thought it was when I was younger, till I moved to Wales. And then now I know what dark is, because it's really dark here. Like there's no light pollution at all. The sea, it does have an impact. It's not a noticeable impact. I know what has impacted it, but it's not an obvious, but that's definitely apparent in everything that I make. I think.
And you're brilliant. You know, you're very good at social media and posting on Instagram.
Yes,
so all these wonderful images that come from your studio, but usually taken, where you are now in your studio, with the light at different levels shooting in, but always, well, maybe not always, it seems from a viewer looking in that focus for you is the light and how it's hitting a vessel or being thrown from a vessel, or
it's really important. I mean, that when I was talking about this sort of last week, and when a piece of work that I made in my second year, where I made bone china and then I did wax, I can't remember the name. You put wax on and then sponge it away, water resist on, and that was to do with light and seeing through, and then that sort of came full, it keeps going round, and it's okay, the work is changing, but still my work, I kind of want people to look through the work. It's not just what you see on the outside, it's looking inside, and it's making your own decisions about how that inside might make you feel as well. So again, that's to do with the light and seeing and looking. I mean, it is, I love it. I love my studio so much. But I do gaze out the windows all the time, because I think because it can get quite dark. You're in, especially at this time of the year. I mean, it's been dark and very wet, and actually this little square in front of me is really important.
Window onto a world, and your work. How about your studio, Hannah and Doug? Does it hit -7?
This one hasn't while we've been living here, but I'm sure it will at some point. I've had the water in the wheel tray freeze overnight, and the clay. So seasonally everything slows down at this time of year, just because it takes so much longer to dry anything.
We're only it's a period of transition for us really anyway, isn't it? Because we're just having the workshop. We've been here 4 years now, 5 years we've been here, goodness me. And it's been a gradual, as we're going to afford to do a bit on the workshop, we've added bits, and I hope this is not too disruptive. The builders here now, bashing and sawing.
Putting a new window in,
putting a new window and a wood burner. But we've only just had electricity wired into it yesterday, so I mean properly we've been running off extension leads and things, so our light in there has been appalling really, hasn't it, because we just had to move lights around. So now we have proper ambient lighting throughout, but I Yes, I like working over night time in there. So I quite like the dark time of year. There's a certain comfort with it being dark outside and you're warm and in the light inside. So we have two little children. We've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old who are with us. The 4-year-old's at nursery 3 days a week, but the 2-year-old is with us all the time. So quite often our practice has been to get the kids to bed, and we have a monitor with a video thing, and we can go out. Workshops only just outside the window here. Go out and work and keep an eye and an ear on them. And so we're quite used to working in the after dark, aren't we? It just comes a bit earlier this time of year, doesn't it? We get them in bed earlier. So I don't know whether that answers the question at all, did it? I don't know.
You mentioned about work taking longer to dry naturally, sort of through the darker seasons. So do you find yourself making slightly different pieces then? Is it smaller pieces or more open pieces, or not really?
We don't really do it. I mean, again, yes, we use a gas torch. We do have a gas torch. So if we, for instance, if I were to put slip onto this, whatever time of year, because it has so many bits where the slip's going to get trapped on it and rehydrate the pot. If I don't torch it, it's liable to split and collapse anyways. So we just use a gas torch, don't we, and kind of gas torch stuff. So no, I don't think it. We still make the same forms, don't we? We're in a very slow period of development because we've got the children at home. So it tends to be we make what we make, whatever the time of year, doesn't it? Really, there are lots of things we want to do, we want to develop, but of course we only have a certain number of hours in the day when we can do that. So so we're pretty much making the same thing, whatever the time of year.
Although this year I have found we started a vegetable garden this year for the first time, and so I have been paying more attention to things that are growing and how they're growing, and that's definitely influenced my decoration much quicker than I would have expected.
We're much the same, aren't we? We live in the middle of nowhere, really, and we have the forest a few hundred yards down the road, and so we're always in the hedgerows, aren't we? And that obviously it comes out in what we do. The natural world is. I often say that I'd probably make different things if I lived in the city, just because your visual stimulus is so different, isn't it?
So in your new collection that you recently launched online, which is lovely online, would you say there's new vegetable garden inspired slipwear in there?
Yeah, for me certainly, yeah.
No, lovely.
All the pots have got names, haven't they? Yeah. You start looking much more at plants and things, don't you? So suddenly they've got names, the pots, which they never had before, did they?
And Heather, you're quite, I'd say, this is me being objective, looking in at your practice. Your practice is very much driven or inspired by a sort of natural world as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's more the natural and sort of man-made world, I suppose. Because I mean, my sort of childhood was beachcombing, and I grew up basically at the very southern tip of Skye, so there's really nothing there. So I very much childhood spent walking, and my dad's a painter, so I've always been sort of surrounded by artists and sort of creativity, and I think when I studied in Edinburgh, well, it was a teenager basically in a city for the first time by myself, so I loved that, but I think it did sort of really creep in I was sort of kind of missing home, but not I wasn't really admitting it to myself, but it definitely came out in my work, in my 4th year work. And then when I did move home, in between sort of then moving to Glasgow, it was very much like, well, this is actually, this really does inspire me. So it's the plastics that wash up on the beach, the pops of sort of colour that you sort of see that way, but it's, you know, everything's really weathered. And also, I'm sure a lot of people relate, is the weather is a huge kind of inspiration as well. Like, sky can be pretty grey, so I think that's very much where my use of stainless steel has come from, like that really kind of industrial use, but then I really see it as like that kind of that color. So yeah, it's those it's the kind of, it's the coastal scenes, it's the fishing nets, it's the kind of the harbors, the how seaweed washes up on the beach, how like you'll always find a glove on the beach, you'll always find a shoe, you know, it's like those kind of man-made objects, but they've been in the sea for who knows how long, and it's kind of from those that I get, like I sort of really distress my silver when I use it, and that's really inspired by those things that I found. But yeah, so it is weird. I've been interested to see how living in a city, I didn't know how that was going to change my work, but I go home every month. Obviously not at the moment, but usually, so I'm very much conscious that I need a country fix. So whether that's just like standing on a beach or, you know, going for a hill walk or something. So that's really important to my kind of creativity, and yeah, having that outlet. I mean, then I love coming back to the city, but it's a transitional phase, I think, this kind of time of my life of living in a city, and then I will probably move back to the countryside.
Rush to the beach anyway,
Yeah.
after a big storm.
Exactly.
Treasure trove of findings.
Yeah.
Elmina.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this because, I mean, I'm from Kiruna, which is the northernmost town in Sweden. So it's a mining town up in the mountains, and really cold winters, really cold. But yeah, I think now also with everything that happened this last year, it feels like more and more people are thinking about the countryside. Because I mean, for me, I would get a studio for the same kind of, I don't know, as living in a city. And I'm so envious of people living in the countryside, that all natural light and kind of being closer to the seasons, I think. So yeah, it's very interesting to hear what you were saying about needing a country fix, because I get that, like, I need to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of that thing of like, I feel totally the same when I sort of, I'm like, oh, you know, it'd be great to move home, or, you know, not even like moving to an island again, but I think it's that thing of, it's always grass is greener, isn't it? Of, you know, I know that it can rain for 2 months on Skye, you know, and I'm like, I know that sometimes you can't get off the island, you know, and it's all those things of, you know, trying to enjoy what you've got at the moment and then make the most of that. Like, I love being able to walk to a bakery and, you know, all those sort of things that I know I can't do if I live at home, but it's definitely trying to get that balance of knowing what it does for like my creativity to be able to go to the countryside and get that and see it and feel it, and then be able to come back and sort of use it. But yeah, I wish there was more sort of mixture and being able to do both.
Yeah.
And I guess what we're...
I was just going to say, just that thing of just the city and the countryside being I'm very much a Londoner, but I'm here in Wales and that's where I live. And I think one of the when I moved here, it was really noticing the seasons. And it was like, as in London, I just realised that when you walk down the street, you just got wet when it rained. Whereas here in Wales, you can see it coming. You can see where it's coming from. It's fast. And from where we are, I can see over to the Presellies. And that to me was that sort of really sums up quite the difference between the places. But then it is that the grass is always greener. I mean, I'm dying to go to the city. It's been a long time this year than I'd normally have gone, so I'm dying to do that. So it's that sort of, yeah.
Yeah,
I find that I don't really agree about not noticing the seasons in London, because I grew up in Cyprus, so I'm an island girl as well. And I definitely grew up watching the seasons, and even, you know, I knew that in winter the sun set over the mountains, but in summer it moved out and set over the sea. But I don't know whether it's my own particular focus on landscape and plants anyway, but I definitely always watching the changes in trees, the street trees, even a tree outside our house, but on the street, it's the last one to drop its leaves, which really drives me nuts, because you want to do one clear out, one sweep and know that it's clean, but it doesn't work like that. So, but I don't know if it's just me, but I definitely notice the change of the seasons.
I think you can definitely see the seasons change in London. It's just a different way of looking at the bigger space around you. I think that's what I meant sort of with the what you can see and how far you can see and where things, because like the city, I think the colours are more extraordinary in the city because of the planting than I would probably have here, because it's very rural and things have just grown naturally rather than been planted. It's, I mean, I think both are equally as beautiful in both their ways. So that's.
I do get the needing the country fix though, especially this year. You do kind of get a bit of cabin fever, and you do need, even though I live quite close to the river and I walk the dog by the river, but you do need the bigger wilderness to kind of stretch your lungs.
So thinking of this year and cabin fever, but you could sort of say it's thinking positively, that it's a season of change, maybe of adjustments. We've all adjusted. I wondered if there were any particular aspects or elements of practice that you feel you've been forced to or have naturally found yourself adjusting that actually feels really positive over the last few months, over the last year. Seasonal adjustment.
I find I used to do a lot of in-person sales, and I did a lot of those at Craft Central in London, which used to be in Clerkenwell, and they moved to a different location about 3 years ago, and I'd got to a point where I was exhausted by doing selling events, because it's very intense in the run-up of building up your stock and all the marketing and everything else, and I just took a break from that and just did everything online. And I just feel that this year that kind of worked well for me, that I was already geared up for selling everything online. But now I'm actually realizing that I really miss seeing my customers. But I feel like I've let things go in terms of having that infrastructure of which events I did every year, and I knew I would apply and get the place because they knew me. And I had other creatives that I would team up with to do group shows. And I feel like this is the first thing I'm doing where I'm not doing it solo, the digital craft fair. But I want to start, when the world goes back to normal, I want to start going out to sell more in person. Because my daughter's older now, it will be more possible for me to do that. And the other bonus of this pandemic has been that my husband now has to work from home. They don't have a physical office anymore, which means that, okay, my daughter's early teens, she's more independent, but also he will be home and he can feed her. Say if I had to go out somewhat to different city or different region to sell, actually there's someone at home to keep things going and make sure the dog's been walked and there's dinner and things like that. So although a lot of bad stuff has happened this year and a lot more insecurity, I feel like actually I've got more room to do things which are my business rather than just looking after everyone else.
Different balance.
I think a positive thing with this year, I mean, usually this time of year I'm all booked out for markets and shows and stuff until Christmas, but this year it's been yeah, they keep cancelling shows, even here in Sweden. We've had like different rules than you have in the UK. So, but no shows and things like that. But one positive thing about that is not having to lug around boxes and boxes of knitwear. It's not as heavy as ceramics, which I'm thankful for, but yeah, it's still quite a lot of work. And I usually stand outside at Christmas shows and it's cold, and yeah, so that's been quite good. And you kind of find new ways of communicating with people, like updating your website, joining the craft festival. I mean, this is amazing. I went to the Bobby Tracy one, what was it, 2016, 2017. It was amazing. It was so much fun, and meeting all the makers and all the customers, and it's really got this like festival feel, and I love that. So I'm really happy that I can join in, even though I'm in Sweden. So yeah.
Good.
I've sort of found a positive to one of the sort of things this year is I find that I've spent actually quite a lot of time stocking and like making work to stock places, and you know, something that I've obviously been very happy to do in the past, but it's really highlighted to me this year actually how much time I spend doing that, and you know how much time that takes up actually not being creative or, you know, trying to make new work, or and actually I find the artist support pledge on Instagram this year was a really amazing way for me to make some new work and to actually try out some things which were like, you know, in the back of my head for so long and just never find the time to actually do it. And there's always, I kind of find there's a natural progression to how I develop my work through the year, and it's for specific shows, or it's for Christmas, or it's for something, whereas this was very much like, well, this isn't actually for anything, this is for kind of for you. And I think that was one of the really nice things of this year, was actually going, well, I don't have anything in the diary at all, you know. So, and it was having that kind of leeway to, yes, okay, still having the pressures of, you know, making money and being able to pay the rent and all that sort of thing, but actually having some space and breathing time to actually kind of look at what I'm making and go, okay, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to do this and see how it works.
Some space to breathe a little, stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
We on?
Not on the treadmill so much.
Doug.
That's exactly how we felt, really, isn't it? Because we've always done so many shows through the year, and we thought, right, this year we'll do fewer shows. Although we didn't, we ended up taking on more, didn't we? Because you kind of, you know, for selected shows, you apply for everything in the hope that you'll get into some of them, and then if you get into all of them, then you're kind of committed to doing them all. So, but we did decide we were going to slow down a little bit, and this has been enforced this year. So that's been a good thing, hasn't it? As Heather was saying. But another thing we've found that we've enjoyed about it is we go and do a lot of demos at the Potters Associations and things. Whereas this year, because of course we haven't been able to do that, but we've done some via Zoom, which has been quite interesting from the workshop. So rather than traveling and taking all our stuff to wherever, we've been able to just do a demo in our own workshop, and we've got one of those gimbal things so we can move the phone around to film and pick up the questions on the back of the phone, and which has worked well because there's the two of us. So, and we're doing one in fact for the digital craftsman. And so that's been a great thing. And the fact we're all sitting here now doing this, we would never have done this kind of thing before, and it's kind of become much more commonplace, hasn't it, to talk like this?
No, which is lovely. Gail, did you want to chip in?
Yeah,
And we've moved rooms.
Yes.
I was just going to say, like, for positive things that have happened this year with all the not doing the shows and not catching the ferry over to England, Scotland several times a year and driving halfway around the countryside with the car loaded up to the roof and all the rest of it. I did manage to get my new website finished in May. This is like a selling one rather than just the website. So, and it's been on the back burner for 2 years. So, lockdown, just sat down and sort of plowed through it little bit by little bit. And it's all, I never used YouTube so much in my life. There's tutorials for anything you want to do, and we've learned all kinds of things, technology as well. And between myself and my sister, we've mended the roof. Do you know what I mean? We've done all sorts of things we never thought we'd ever be able to do. So I've got the website done, and sort of not the usual production of, the printmaking. So lots of more time to work on new ideas. And I noticed there the other night that the hand stitch work I do, it's getting ridiculous the amount of detail in it, and I think it's just because there's no rush to get it finished. There's nobody particularly waiting to buy it. I'm just doing it, and I just keep going. And I could just get one more teeny weeny leaf in here, and I think I'll just do it. So it's getting and I just looked at one the other night and I thought you can't wholesale this. This is ridiculous. So it'll have to go for a private sale. I'm never going to get any sort of relevant amount of money for it. Do you know what I mean? So the work's changed a bit in that way, but it's fine. It's good. I was also surprised that people are happy to buy. People who I haven't sold to before, who, to my knowledge, don't know my work, but they may have seen it somewhere, and they're happy to buy it online and trust that it's going to turn up and they're going to like it, and they do, which is great. Because I always think, if it's printmaking or anything hand stitched, I've always thought in the past I would want to see that myself before I bought it. But now I think all that's changed a lot.
So if we take those changes and aspects that have shifted just in the last year for you, and zoom out, dear, but take a bigger, wider focus. And if you had to consider your practices over their long term, their lifetimes, would you say you'd recognise a sort of ebb and flow within those? There's been periods of rigorous development, rigorous growth, periods of where you've just been able to enjoy the fruits of your labours and your experience. And some of you have touched on this just in relation to your work in the last couple of months. But I just wondered if you sort of were to stand back and look at your practice from a distance sort of thing, whether you've noticed this shifting rhythm at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned something about that in the beginning of the talk, but I just, I feel like when you're being creative, it's always like you always have to be kind of coming up with new ideas and things like that and new ways of doing things. But it's nice to have been doing this for, what is it, like 6 years now? And even though I have like a slow month or something where I'm not really selling anything and I feel like, oh, should I do this anymore and stuff, having those years behind me, I know that in tomorrow I might feel like, right, I'm going to come up with this massive pattern and it's going to be amazing and I really want to do it. I want to get into it. And I love that kind of being able to tell myself that, okay, I've felt like this before and I will find that kind of creativity again. And sometimes you just have to open a book or go to a museum, maybe not now, but the online museums, great. And just look at different things and get inspired. And I like that.
I find the kind of, it's not just the inspiration bit that ebbs and flows, it's the sales as well. And sometimes if you have a few really quiet weeks, you think, oh, nobody loves me anymore. But actually then you look at your sales in the past and you think, it will come, especially when it's online and you don't see people's faces when they look at what you make. There's no feedback at all. There's no way of tracking what's in their head when they're looking at your work. But you think, well, as long as I, do more of what I do, change a bit, whatever, but keep going and keep putting stuff out there, that the sales will come again. And it's only by doing it for a long period that you get the faith that you will, it will get busy again. It's just hard to know when that's going to happen.
I think also with creativity that it is that it's sometimes it's not every day, and there are some days where, like you said, you just read a newspaper in your studio, or there are days when it's sort of the head is full and there isn't enough time to do everything, and you have to be sort of quite kind to yourself, I think. I mean, I've had a studio 20 years now, and I think I graduated in 98, and it takes such a long time to sort of allow yourself the space to say it's not, sometimes not every day. There are days when you have to make yourself do it, and it just doesn't feel right. I know, but I've learned over time that that's when I break things, or something will go wrong at times, when I'm just really not quite in that sort of headspace, and that it would be better to just sit here and do a Sudoku or a crossword or something like that, or listen to quite loud music, which is what I do when I really can't quite concentrate. I like to blast some very, very loud music, which is the opposite of sort of my work. But that actually is quite a creative process for me, and it gets things going. So it's another thing of allowing yourself. This period of not having to make as much as I'd normally make has been quite nice. I've quite enjoyed that. It's sort of, that I'm not going to say taking boxes of work, because I can pretty much fit an entire show of mine in one box, but it's because it's quite small. But it's been quite creative in allowing that time to not have to just, go, okay, well, I'm just going to make 8 pieces or something, rather than going to sort of make 80, which sort of frightens me sometimes. But and also allow, giving. I try and allow myself the space, but I've learned that more in this year than I have probably any other year. So reflecting back on maybe how I've worked in the past, and how I want to work.
Yeah.
Really, it's and the things that I want to do, and where I want it to go, and the things that I want to make. I've stopped worrying, actually. I've just stopped worrying at the moment. Maybe it's not a good thing, but I'm just quite resourceful. I think if you're creative, you've probably always been quite resourceful. And for the changes, I mean, sort of 10 years ago, I might have panicked more, but I'm not really a panicker. So, but yeah.
I think that's a very good thing. If you stop worrying, then yeah, we'll all have some of that.
Yeah, sometimes you can't change things. It's not saying I don't, we do obviously there, but I think on the whole, it's there's certain things I can't change, and it's allowing myself, I allow myself to go with it. I find, and loud music, that always helps me. Loud music. It's hitting a big birthday quite soon has made me want to behave like I'm 20 again.
So what kind of loud music is it?
Oh God! At the moment, I was listening to the Chemical Brothers, MGMT, and then trying to think what else. There's loads. I've become a bit of a spotter. Lots and lots and lots. The Orb, JJ Cale, all sorts.
Great.
Helps.
Out from your studio. Thank you. Does anyone want to add a last word or two?
Well, I'm going to now go and look up all of you and check out your Instagram accounts and follow and enjoy, because I kind of got to know you. I want to go and look at your work more.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting. I mean, one thing that scares me about only selling online and not selling in markets and things is that you don't really meet people face to face, and I don't film myself. I'm in all my pictures, but then I'm standing still, and I just stand here, take a picture. That's good. But filming like this, it's a new experience, and it's not that scary. And so, yeah, that's a good experience. And
I think we're all getting used to doing things. We're all getting used to doing new things we never thought we would be doing this time last year. I mean, all the Zoom business, and I would just go Spotify. But you know what? We're doing it. Look at us, aren't we great? And I think when on days when you know, you're not feeling all that sort of, because nobody, you haven't seen anybody for days on end, and nobody said, oh, that's lovely, Gail, oh, look what you've done now, I really like those colours, or blah. You haven't heard anything. It's just to sort of say to myself, well, you know, Gail, if you don't make it, you're not going to sell it. And if you don't get it out there and nobody knows you've made it, they can't buy it. So basically just make whatever it is, the thing that's in your head, and take a picture of it and put it on your social media and just see what happens, because you never know, somebody might actually, you know, want it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
You have
Well,
to keep going.
I think as Gail says, we're doing it. You're all doing it. So you know, thank you ever so much, and really look forward to seeing you again and meeting you maybe one day.
Lovely.
At a fair or a festival or online again. So thank you to Aisha and Kathy and Justine and Gail and Heather and Hannah and Doug and Elmina. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you all.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.